Are you familiar with some of the things he said lately that has, for me, I found it hurtful, but I would love to hear your translation because you might have a different perspective. But he said that, slavery was a choice, being slave for 400,000 years. I don't want to misquote him, but that was 400 was a choice. We should have rebelled. And I was hurt by those comments, but I'd like to hear your perspective of it right now.
Well, first of all, Kanye is my brother and I love him dearly. He's a very, very brilliant man who's struggling to find his way. And when he was on the radio on Charlemagne the God's interview, that was a great interview.
It was.
Because every time Charlemagne said, well, you had a breakdown, Kanye would say, I would rather call it a breakthrough.
Right.
And he's wrestling with 400 years. And he misspoke because we didn't choose slavery. Come on now, nobody that loves freedom would choose slavery. But it was a choice. But it wasn't our choice. It was God's choice. And when you understand Scripture, the people of God, the people of Abraham, were prophesied to go into bondage in a strange land among a strange people for 400 years. And we have served that sentence. But that sentence was God's way of, first of all, purifying us for the next phase of the world's existence, because he said, I'm going to choose a people that were no people at all. I'm going to take the bottom rail, bring it to the top. You will no longer be the tail, but you shall be the head. So we didn't choose this, but God chose it for us. But here's what I think Kanye was saying. Look, man, we are slaves again. How are you a slave now? You got a chain around your brain, and you allow your education or your miseducation to make you think you're better than your little brother who doesn't have it. With education comes an arrogance that makes you think you know what you don't know. Because all the education we've received, we have never used it to put our people's feet on a strong economic foundation. So he's trying to break chains of sex. I'm hoping soon to talk to some of my brothers who have let the pleasure of sex and the pain of black life drive them to an insanity, if you follow what I'm saying. So he's breaking through those kind of chains. He wants to break those chains that bind him to this or that. He wants to be a free thinker. He hasn't gotten there yet, but he made this I would call it misspoke. And my man T.I. and Kanye have been at it beautifully, talking, critiquing. Kanye's a beautiful man. I'm hoping that you didn't get so bent out of shape when you know your brother, in the psychiatric terms, had a breakdown. And if you have a breakdown, you don't come back to where you were instantaneously. It's a process. And in that process, he came on with Charlemagne the God. Then he went on TMZ and he talked about this is a choice. Yeah, choosing drugs over sanity, that's a choice of slavery. Choosing ignorance over wisdom, that's a choice we're making. So we're chained in another kind of way, that now that truth will set you free, if you reject that which will set you free, you've made a choice to be a slave.
Where the offering at? I need to give you some. That was a word this morning.
Go ahead. Can I piggyback off that for 1 second and ask you a follow-up question? In the current climate, especially with the current administration, we feel like the racism has been more outright, so to speak. And there are some. I was going back and forth arguing with somebody on Twitter just the other day who feels like right now this current administration has done more for black people than we realize, has done more for black people than the previous administration. And some people would argue that it's better now that the racism is more in our face rather than hidden. Excuse me. What's your perspective on that?
Well, that wasn't the intent of this administration to do a lot of good for us. But the nature of this administration is good for us. Because now, you know, sometimes you think you're where you are not. And so Trump is letting you know where you